Okay, so we're gonna call to order our North Shore Fire Department Board of Commissioners meeting. First order of business is roll call.
Good evening, Commissioner Admin.
Present.
Commissioner Pratt will not be available, he's excused absent. Commissioner Byers will be joining the meeting later. Commissioner Webster,
Here.
Commissioner Woolen,
Here,
Chief Callan,
Here.
Legal Counsel Matt Paxton,
It's like he's connecting right now.
doing something like that.
his audio is connecting. And I'm Board Secretary Amy Oakley.
Would you like me to wait for Mr. Paxton?
You can join.
Okay.
Okay, sign out.
So now we're gonna go on to public comment. And I would like to thank all of you for showing up tonight. It's great that we're getting public involvement. It means a lot to us. So hopefully we can continue to work together to get all this stuff figured out. So did anyone want to make a public comment that's sitting here? Go right ahead. You want to come up by the microphone so we can kind of hear you?
Can I even sit down?
You can sit down.
At my age, you know, it's just.
We'll be very proud.
Yeah. That's good. All right. Let's see here. I'm Ken Dean, and I'm a resident of Kenmore. I live in South Kenmore. And I'm here to talk about the Station 54 item on the agenda. I read the consultant's report. I think it's good. I think it's detailed, well thought out. I think that there are a couple things missing from it. One is it doesn't address what do you do if there's a widespread event of some kind that affects more than one fire department. And, you know, this would be like a major earthquake or a storm, major storm, forest fire. And in that case, Kirkland Fire Department might not be available to help in South Kenmore. The other one is that it doesn't address zoning changes, and I think the impact of zoning changes is going to be to increase density. I think they've what the consultants did was to basically take a pretty aggressive approach to population growth and figured that was probably good enough. But it's basically it's a wild card. We don't know. So I ask that you consider that. Population growth may be what they think or a little less, or there's a wild card, it may be a lot more. Still, I think the consultant report makes a pretty strong case for keeping Station 54. The charts for me that are key are the ones on page 21, charts and maps, 21 and pages 30 through 32. They detail how much worse the response times are in South Kenmore. And it says that they would be improved with Station 54, and the words they use actually are drastically improved with Station 54 if it's put back into service. And I know that it's normal to have pockets in a fire district that there are areas where they don't get service as fast as other areas. It's normal, I'm sure. But our situation is different in that we've got a river dividing the town in half and one bridge over it and no fire equipment, no fire facility south of the river. And so that's what we feel needs attention. And yes, there are fewer incidents in South Kenmore overall for fire and medical emergencies. But it's also the place of greatest projected growth. And of course, as we all agree, the lives in South Kenmore are equally valuable to the lives in North Kenmore. I know you agree or you wouldn't be here. So I'm asking that you please put Station 54 back into service.
Is there anyone else that wanted to speak? Yes. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jean Rossner, and We've lived in South Kenmore for about 40 years. And as I've listened to these commissioner hearings, the thing that really stands out for me is, why was that land purchased in the first place? Why did the fire district think that buying that piece of land 100 feet by 200 feet was a good idea some 50 years ago? I don't know if it was 50 years ago. It was fire district when we moved in 40 years ago. It was a volunteer fire department. And I was really grateful to have it there when we actually had a chimney fire not long after we moved in and didn't realize that we needed to have the chimney cleaned. And the response from the fire department was so immediate because they were right there. I was grateful for that. And even though there was a siren on top and it was annoying sometimes, I was grateful to have the fire district right there. I guess my concern is, as I've been getting older, many of my neighbors are getting older. What is the response time, especially for medical aid if we need it? And I realize that maybe 100 feet by 200 feet isn't big enough to have a big fancy fire department there, but it is big enough to have an aid car there. And it seems to me that of all the things that require fast response, and that there's going to be the most number of calls for medical aid. So I would ask the commission to please consider using this piece of land to keep some kind of support for South Kenmore. Thank you. Well, thanks.
And just to remind you guys, you have 3 minutes each to speak, so I think Amy will keep track, but we're good. I just wanted to remind everybody.
Thank you for letting me take your time. I'm here today to talk about the importance of keeping the property at Station 54. As an individual, Kenmore, who has actually used your fire department, your aid station to come help me, and I really appreciate it. I know that seconds count in emergency, and I was grateful for the service that I did receive. Station 54 is strategically located in the south of Kenmore, for the Inglewood Moreland neighborhood. With the medical emergency, for any medical emergencies, it's critical. We should not have to rely on Kirkland as a backup to serve the area. We know that traffic coming over the bridge at certain times of the day can be a hassle, especially when seconds and minutes count, especially for aid units. And that time really at the wrong time of the day is critical. In your report, I really appreciate how you went through and balanced the pros and cons of the report, but I think I tend to favor keeping it. Some of the things I thought was short on is you looked at the past response times, even though the response in that area is lower than some of the other areas in Kenmore. You need to look at the demographics. We're all getting older. I've had to use you because I'm starting to get older. The housing could be going up. Traffic is going up, especially on Juanita Drive. And then you have to look at Kenmore itself in downtown core. Currently, the city of Kenmore is working with Plymouth Housing to put in a low-income 100-unit right on Buffalo Way. Similar facilities like in Seattle, they have medical response calls almost daily to those type of facilities. Are we going to be having something there, and then our vehicle here, we have to pull from somewhere else with heavy traffic? I think it's in the best interest to keep 54, the property of 54, and develop it into a new facility. Thank you.
Anyone in the room?
Excuse me, what was your name?
Oh, my name is Mark Prince, and I've been here for all my life, over 50 years.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Nathan McDonald. I'm a resident of Kenmore. I'm in favor of keeping Station 54 in some operational capacity. I'm certainly not an expert as far as what that capacity might be, but I definitely echo the thoughts of at least an aid unit there. To me, that makes a lot of sense, particularly with the schools located close by. And we all know that as unfortunately in these times, things happen at schools. And I'm not necessarily referring to the the ones that make the news, but there are other events too. And so particularly with the people in this room who I'm certainly getting older myself, but there are people who may have a couple of years on me. And I think that it would behoove the district to keep that facility there. I'd also like to reference other speakers have already referenced the increased density that we expect to see through HB 1110 and the duplex triplex issue there. But I'd also like to add that accessory dwelling units, and particularly those that house elder relatives, are likely on an upswing here now that I understand that they are not only permittable, but in fact, the city has waived permit fees for ADUs. So I think that adds some increased density there as well. Lastly, I will mention Juanita Drive, which love it or hate it, it has been changed. And that also includes, there are now engineered islands in there, and right adjacent to those, some bus lane islands that, in my experience, in heavy traffic, one cannot pass when there is traffic stopped in that area. And I think it's unfortunate they were designed, or that road was designed the way it was, because now I think that there will be increased response times at certain times of the day when traffic simply cannot pull over. There's no place to pull over. And so any benefit that can be realized by retaining Station 54, I think should be kept in mind. So thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in the room that wishes to speak?
Hello,
Hi
I'm
there.
another South Kenmore resident concerned about Station 54. My name is Gary Menendez, and I live in Kenmore since 1985. And I've just witnessed, like everybody else living in South Kenmore, the increase in traffic on Juanita Drive, which is the only arterial up that hill. It's not going to get better. With the new zoning regulations that are coming down in the next couple of years, density is going to increase naturally in all the single family zones. There's a lot of people are going to be putting in extra housing, and I just think so. The traffic situation is going to get worse and worse. The population is going to increase. The population is aging, and this piece of property is already in public hands. And to me, it just seems very short-sighted to let it go out of public hands, to sell it off as surplus property for development into commercial use, residential use. The affordable, housing goals that Kenmore has set for itself can be addressed other than this piece of property that is right now on public hands, a very valuable piece of property. In 10, 15 years from now, where would you find a piece of property to put an EMS station? So I just think it's short-sighted to let it leave the public domain and pass into commercial private use. And so I just wanted to get up here, and along with a lot of my neighbors, we're all saying essentially the same thing, but I just wanted to go on record as saying it myself. So, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Is there anyone that is on our Zoom that would like to speak? If you could raise your hand, and then Amy will acknowledge you as your hand comes up. Okay, we're not seeing any hands, so I'm gonna do one last call out for anybody that wants to do a 3-minute public speech. And not seeing anyone, let's go ahead and move on. We've got the approval of the agenda now.
I make a motion that we accept the agenda as presented.
A second.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed unanimously. For discussion and possible action items, discussion of the audio visual bids for Station 51 public meeting room.
Thank you. So we discussed this at, a couple of meetings now, but there were some questions that came up from the last meeting that I should have the expert here to address. So that if you had any specific questions about what the system is that we're looking at replacing and non-proprietary, trying to make it as simple and as upgradable in the future as possible. So if you have any questions for Deb, that would be great.
That was our big question, is if it was upgradable.
One of the questions was whether or not it's be wireless or not. Okay. It's probably a combination of both, or is it all hardware?
Well, I have a little speech, if you don't mind. I'll go through it real quick. So joining is Alex McNeil from JMark. That is one of the vendors that we got a bid from for a system design. JMark is also the company that installed this system originally when the building was built. So we're talking about not only a system replacement, but it's also a system upgrade. So there's 3 categories or specific reasons why we're looking at this project. Number 1 is quality, 2 is simplicity, and 3 is reliability. So I'll just go through my speech as quick as I can, but if you've purchased a TV in the last 8 years, you've probably seen that everything is called 4K now, what most TVs are, and it looks beautiful. 4K is a very clear thing. But in order to watch something that's in 4K, you have to have 4 things. You have to have a TV that's 4K. You have to have the disc or Netflix, or whatever, that's 4K. You have to have a player. If you're doing a disc, you have to have a player that can play a 4K disc. And then you have to tap the wiring to connect it all. If you're missing one of those components, you're not going to get the real 4K. So that's just an example. But nothing in the system that's in this room today is even close to 4K. It was a very old system that was installed back in 2010. And even then, when it was installed, it was 3 or 4 years old, sitting in a warehouse because of how the purchasing went for that. This room is used by academies, different classroom events, the public meetings, and the chief had a meeting here that had a little frustration. So the next category is simplicity. So if you've ever looked at the back of a TV kind of in the 90s and early 2000s, you remember that they had all those ports, and you looked at your device and all those ports and what matches up to what. Do I have the right ports? Now in today's world, things are simplified. Everything is what's called HDMI, which is a single connection from a laptop to a TV, a laptop to a projector. It's a single wire. There's really no way to mess it up. They've simplified the system. If you look above now, there's 2 projectors because this room is designed to be split in half. I've talked to a lot of people and they say this room only gets split in half once a year. And even then they never use the projectors in that because the room's split in half. Everybody's looking up at the projector screen. They don't use the projectors in that split mode. So simplifying the system design, we're looking at going to a single projector that is a higher quality with a bigger screen so that the visibility from the back of the room to the front of the room will be much better. So then reliability. So I've been supporting North Shore for about 2 years now, and I've had numerous complaints about the system having some issues, either not working right, components are failing, or some people just can't understand how to use it because it's a very complicated system. Again, it was installed back when the building was new. I'm not familiar with the details, but like I said, I heard that the components were actually quite old before they were installed. Speaking with JMark and the original installer, he said that it was actually on the verge of a big technology change, and it should have been the modern technology of the time, but it was not. So like I said, kind of brings this around that if you're going to replace just one of the components that's failing, it's going to be of the modern quality, the 4K like, which means you'll eventually have to replace the rest of the components to make sure it's all compatible and to keep it simple. So that's my speech. So go ahead.
Question for you, are we gonna do like a screen here, and is it the same screen or are we updating the screen?
New screen as well.
Because they have, I know,
Yeah.
it's a lot better. And then are we gonna have a camera back there, so that'll be in the ceiling for us, for our meetings, that will be able to project it up on the screen and put it out to. What I'm worried about is Zoom, if we have to do split meetings, or we want to be able to do it without having the Mickey Mouse like we're doing right now. Is the new system set up to do that?
But that is one of, I don't know if you've seen the bid from JMark. Did they actually get the packet? So
wow, 2 meetings.
Okay. So one of the items on the packet is cameras. Where we have to be cautious with that is depending on the layout of the room, a camera that is mounted on the wall might not be in the right place. So I know you called it a Mickey Mouse solution, but there are ways of having a floating camera. I know it's kind of wires in the room, right? We can design it a little better to not Mickey Mouse it so much, but still having the camera be portable based on the layout of the room. You can have the camera facing this way or this way. So we did not spec it as designed with a wall mounted camera for that reason. And the same thing with microphones is you can get microphones that hang from the ceiling, but based on the layout of the room where people are sitting, the microphone might not be in the correct position. So having floating microphones is actually more beneficial because then you can put it into the right place.
And the other question I had is the system going to be able to have more than one microphone? Like a lot of, I believe Shoreline had where we have a public microphone, one for here, we have more than one microphone set up, the ability to do that.
We definitely have the ability to do that. That was not part of the proposal as is, but that, and Alex can speak to that about the options for additional microphones in the design.
Bring to mind is just sometimes I'll watch like city council meetings at the city of Kenmore,
Mhm.
for instance, and they have a pretty seamless way of transitioning between, like a projected screen or something that people can watch as a shared thing or views of the, who's speaking, or so I don't know what's the user, how comparable it would be to what we're going to, or if it's much more elaborate, but it's a nice level of functionality.
That was which city?
Kenmore.
Oh, City of Kenmore, okay. I'm not familiar with their system, but we can definitely look at it and see what would be comparable. Again, we're looking at replacing kind of like for like the wall panels you see right there, that's what actually controls the system. The core components are actually in a room back there, but it's locked. So most of the public or anybody who uses it for an academy, they don't go back to the core, they only use those touch panels, which are programmed to only give you the options that you need, not all the background stuff. So again, the design that was put in place was to replace kind of like for like with the newer, higher quality and keeping it simple.
That answers my questions.
Yeah, and maybe we don't need as elaborate as the city. I know that they're works pretty seamlessly.
Right.
I think we have multiple cameras too, probably.
In the city council meetings I've seen, they have like dedicated desks and the mics are kind of hard, like screwed into the desks.
Yeah.
Whereas this room gets changed, the layout gets changed every day for different types of
Right.
meetings. So that's why I said kind of the floating idea is preferable for a room of this multi-purpose as opposed to a single
I
purpose.
think we should look at maybe multiple points, so.
Sure.
At least two. So the example was today.
Yeah, it'd be handy if there's one that somebody could, anyone who attends could easily speak.
Sure. Alex, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me and the opportunity. So, yeah, I think Zeb nailed it.
Thanks. Ed.
No other
So,
questions? Uh-oh.
no, the next one's you.
I'll just announce that Commissioner Byers has joined me.
Thank you.
And Matt Paxton, we did roll call as you were getting your audio connected.
Okay, so our next item up for discussion is commissioner laptops. Zeb?
So I just wanted to, in case there were any questions that you guys were talking about, like what the laptops are going to look like, how powerful, which you guys need. And then there was a couple of questions even about public records requests and so forth.
Mhm.
If you have any questions, present on that.
Public records, it'll be the same way it is with the laptops we have now, correct? It'll be
Correct.
on the server and it can be done, so everything. Okay, and then when, is there a timeline? Have you already ordered or do you have to get approval from us to get an order?
We're looking for approval.
And I don't have one at this time.
Okay, no, I didn't. Did you already send out a cheap cost for that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
It's like, is it 2,000, almost 2,000 a piece?
$1,500 plus tax.
Okay. So, I make a motion that we approve purchase of the new computers. And how many are we getting? 6? Is that correct?
I was only intending 5.
5. Amy, or what do you use?
I have a fairly computer.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't need to.
And is it excuse me, is it the fire station or fire department? Okay, okay,
Yes.
perfect. Okay, because my concern is like I use my own laptop, but then if I get a records request, my business is also run off that laptop, so I am not able to turn the whole laptop over, and that wouldn't be very expedient if we had somebody that was.
Public records requests need to be specific and not only the terms or the details and all that. So unless there was something that would indicate that they need to search your entire laptop. And it would need to be specific to certain documents or a certain folder or something of that nature.
Okay,
So, there is a little bit of protection.
okay,
But it's definitely cleaner having a department issued laptop.
okay.
Where it's just completely.
So do we, I don't know if we have to have a motion. I think we just have to have a consensus to go ahead with the purchase. And my consensus is we do it.
Okay, Eric,
Sure.
okay, Tyler, did you have any input on that? No,
Thumbs up
okay,
from
he's on
He's
a,
good with it.
he's on a rig, okay, and then I would say let's go ahead with it, so,
Done deal.
Thank you.
thank you, Zeb.
I go to. Yeah, you get.
Now
Thanks for being here. You don't have to stick around.
Thank you, Zach.
thank you very much. Now our subcommittee report on Station 54.
That would be me, Commissioner Webster. We had a meeting with Tyler Byers, Commissioner Byers and myself this last week, and sat down, went over the presentation and discussed a lot of what's going on. Our consensus of this subcommittee is that we are not going to give up that property. It's going to be a fire station. So our next step is to set up a meeting with the subcommittee and the executive committee and look at future usage and how we set that up. Because even if we plan to do a station, it would take 2.5 years just to get through the process of putting it in. So that's some valuable place for a community garden that can go in the meantime. And then the use of the existing building, we're going to look at different uses that, with some relatively minor fix-ups like the roof and stuff, we might be able to turn that into a community center or something in the meantime. But that's just the research we're doing right now. But the plan is not to just put everybody, that's still going to be fire
District property.
district property, and with the look at zoning, there's a lot of from the presentation, there's a lot of talk about response times and what the impacts in that, and that's a very serious situation that the chief and the executive committee needs to go over, and we'll put together a plan for future to put a station in. There is going to be a need there. It's just a matter of how far out it will be and how much planning goes into it. So, but our committee recommends that the board, to our board, is that we keep the property and move forward with further meetings on it. Thank you.
Eric, did you have any comments regarding this?
No, that's a good update. I wasn't aware that you guys had met or what your conclusions were, so, yeah,
We can't actually talk about it.
sure.
Right, right, I know, it's a little
Until we come-
tricky,
It is
Yeah.
tricky. That's the hard part. So,
yeah,
but there's no question that our fire department is going to keep the property and look to a future station. What that looks like, we don't know at this time. So,
yeah, and I'm assuming a lot of that would have to do with money and how much that costs and,
and time and response time. It's the interesting thing when we're going through the data is that, we have the responses are on that side of the bridge, south of Kansas City, is a relatively small number. So if you have a house that has an ailing person, and we have 3 or 4 calls, that skews our numbers because we have so few calls. So it can go up 40% because we have 5 more calls. So we got to be really careful how you read
The data.
the data, and that's why we have the executive board to help us walk through that. I hope I described that right.
Yeah, I want to try and put some, hopefully some of the concerns, and ease some of those concerns and say, while the response times to South Kenmore are longer, they are not super long in and of themselves. Especially when you look at other fire departments, we actually are pretty blessed to have fairly good responses throughout our entire area. There are areas like South Kenmore, but also like North Kenmore as well, that have longer response times. So I don't want you to feel like that we're failing in responding, again, depending on traffic and all that. We even had a possible fire there just last week, and the response time there was 3.5 minutes.
Wow.
It was the north end of it, but it was still over there by the golf course, and so, so I don't want people to feel like we're failing. The times are a little bit longer, and that is a concern. There is the concern of the bridge failing, potentially and so forth. But one of the things that's actually that we are really fortunate too is that we have great relationships with our neighbors. And we rely on them on a daily basis, but especially if we have a regional issue like a big earthquake or, an ice storm or something like that, that we are helping each other. We're helping each other out on a daily basis, called mutual and automatic aid. And so if the, heaven forbid that the bridge goes down and we have a big, incident or something like that, there will be help coming. And we do help each other out, and we do have those disaster planning in place. Whether it's an earthquake or volcano, whatever it is, we do plan for those events. So I want to try and make sure that we talk about that. One of the big things is, and it's been mentioned by a few people, we don't know what the new accessory dwelling and the higher density, what that really looks like. I did pose that question to our consultants to make sure that they were cognizant of that, and they absolutely are. They did take into account the zoning changes that Kenmore's going through, and it was a factor in their analysis, but there's no way to quantify historical data or to accurately predict, future call volumes off of something that it's likely to happen. I shouldn't say may or may not. It's likely to happen, but at what level and how much of an impact it is, and how spread out, over time this is going to be. So all of these things were taken into account. If you read the report, and also something that could have a profound impact would be the Lake Point, development. And so that was a factor as well. So I just want to make sure that I'm being clear on this. And absolutely, anytime you put a new fire station or a new staffed apparatus anywhere, you're going to have improved performance. We knew that before we even got started, but we have to make sure that we're putting our resources in the right places, throughout the entire, response area. And so that comes down to the money side, as well. This is it will not be cheap, to put a new fire station in. It's, in today's dollars, anywhere from 12 to almost $15 million. And then it's about right now in current money, it's about a $1.7 million, annual, cost to staffing. So it's not, these decisions aren't light, and that's why we took the time to do the report, and why we're going to evaluate what the future and what the next steps are. And as we go through those, we will make sure that we're transparent with all of those discussions with you all, if you want to stay engaged.
And I just want to reiterate as well that you can always email any of us. You can reach us through the website. You can call any of us. Chief Cowan has made himself available as well. So if there are any questions or concerns, we do want to hear them. That's what our job is, to take care of the citizens. So we definitely appreciate the input and the care and the thoughtfulness you guys are putting into all of this. So we do appreciate that.
And I've had some good, at least email conversations with some of you, and some of you have posed some very good questions even in over this last month as we've been evaluating this too. So thank you.
Okay, so on to subcommittee report for Station 51 outbuilding.
That's me again. Commissioner Webster. We have not met yet because of the conflict of schedules and stuff. We're gonna schedule today. And Commissioner Adams on the subcommittee, and we're gonna meet with the executive council and the chief on this and move forward with the discussion. So that's it for right now.
Okay. The next topic for discussion is the NAPO conference. This is something I would like to attend. It should be somewhere around $1,000 to $1,200, but I wanted to present that to the board and see if there were any objections to me going.
What is it?
It's the National Association of Fire.
I want to say it's actually NAEFO,
I think it is
National Association of
Emergency
Fire
Medical.
Officials.
Yeah,
Elected fire officials, maybe that's.
Okay.
Elected sounds better.
okay.
I want to say it's NAEFO, and
Yes.
I believe actually elected fire officials or something like.
Okay,
But
and
it is
that's,
a good conference for elections and getting finding out what's going on. So
and that is in Las Vegas, and it's September 18th and 19th.
I
So,
go to. No, I'm so-
yes,
as
you
long as it's
can.
not three of you, and as long as you guys don't talk about, business.
Right, right,
no,
exactly.
I don't want to go.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
So I just didn't know if there were any objections to that, if there were any concerns regarding that. Okay,
No.
Consensus, okay.
Yeah,
Tyler.
maybe for future, I don't know, what sort of like, we have budget line, cover stuff like that routinely.
There is a line, I don't know what it is, I could look it up.
It's very
it's-
small, and we
Yes.
bumped it up so I could go to the 2 conferences I've already been to. Because it was basically non-existent previous. And so this would not be in the budget line
so it'll
as
be
it
over
stands.
budget.
It would be over budget, correct?
You have an issue. but you-
This is, I don't have an issue of it, but this is your budget, actually. This is not,
Well,
this is the North.
on that budget, talking about it, we had a retreat, teaching retreat a year and a half ago. And did we put budget in for more retreats? Because we do need to have.
I can double check on that as well. I
I
know that
didn't
don't believe
think I
there's-
saw that.
There is, I believe there is some
Thought we
money
did.
for the chair to attend the leadership. retreat.
Okay,
But a separate North Shore board retreat, I don't. believe.
And we need to look at putting that in the budget for next year, because we use it for learning. We had 2 or 3 things that taught us at that, and it was really good. Did you go to that one?
Amy, do you mind putting that up for discussion for next month?
I will-
And then we'll have time to look at that and have a number or not a number and be able to
Yeah,
figure out from
I
there.
will answer these questions tomorrow when I get back to the office as to what the budget is, and all that, but then, yeah, we can have it on the agenda. for the discussion. And it's a good topic too, to talk about as we're starting to go into budget season as well.
Right, that's what I thought
Mhm.
about. So, thank you.
Yeah, especially when I feel like we have a lot of moving parts right now, so it's. Okay, so if nobody's opposed, I'll go ahead and sign up for that. And then an update on the aid car at 157.
So at the last meeting, you wanted an assessment on like the utilization and so forth of 8157. I sent you some of the stats. It's not a busy aid car. We knew probably wasn't going to be a super busy aid car. But it is a level of service improvement for the Lake Forest Park area, and it is helping out with collateral, issues, when there's calls, here or even towards, 63 and so forth. So we don't really want to change it, but we can explore other options to make it more better utilized, in the future. If you'd like, we can explore some different ideas. But for now, it's being utilized. It's going on 1.7 calls every 12 hours, 0.6 transports every 12. The good news is as our staffing has improved, it's been ground out far less, and the subsequent overtime needed to staff it has been dropping as well. So it's, you know, it's, I think it's realistic as far as how often it's getting ground out.
Chief, are we always gonna be on overtime for that?
Not, it won't, it's not always overtime, but it is, because it is the least utilized apparatus, it is also the one that's gonna get the most overtime as well. From a triage standpoint, it's why it gets ground out. We could mandatory people to be there, but that costs more money, and then it's also, I try to be very careful with mandatory, because when I tell Eric, I'm like, I don't care that you're going to Tahiti tomorrow, you're staying here, you know, to staff an apparatus, that has an impact on our personnel.
Yeah.
And so I try to be very cognizant and sensitive to the impacts on our personnel when we look at mandatory.
Well, I think maybe what Commissioner Webster's asking is, would it ever be added to like minimum staffing?
This minimum staffing.
It is identified as a minimum staffing, which is why we authorize overtime, but we have, there's a little kind of like asterisk next to it of saying, we're gonna spend overtime to staff it, but we're not gonna mandatory people to staff it. That's where it gets browned out. So those 4 times that it gets browned out, is because we were into a mandatory situation to get it staffed. So you know, we can certainly revisit that or increase our staffing levels to, you know, as our staffing levels get better, it'll get staffed more and more often without overtime, or not get browned out. But you know, without improving, we either increase staffing to make sure that it does get staffed up, or we go to a mandatory to make sure it gets staffed up. So,
Okay.
and again, if we were, you know, there's the potential we could utilize it differently, and it might become more valuable and actually go to the point of mandatory, or even the board could tell me, I want you to mandatory, but you know, for the reasons I just stated, I think it's in a good place where it is right.
It looks good from what data you showed us, so. Yeah. On that same issue, you sent us out, or not issue, but same item, you sent us out documents about.
With the transport.
Transports.
Right.
Did you want to?
So did that, I don't know if that made sense to you, but
It did.
okay, so we don't have a full year of data. So there's 2 pieces to this. There's BLS transports and there's GMT reimbursement. The BLS transport side, we have 10 out of 12 months. We don't have a full year. And there's a fairly significant lag in the reimbursement process. Getting money from the insurance companies. Sometimes it takes 6 months even, you know, to get reimbursement. So things lag. So you have to look at it as kind of like a rolling 12 months, and look at it from a rolling 12 months that's like 3 months ago, 3 or 4 months ago, to get a more accurate picture of like what kind of reimbursement and what kind of rate we get on that. So, but what I know now, and looking at some of the out there pending, you know, reimbursements and extending that to a 12-month period, we're getting close to what we budgeted for. I think we're probably a little bit light in what our target was. You know, so we'll see how that plays out. We might, you know, I think we're within 10 or 15,000 of the 380 that we, you know, hopefully not more than 20, but you know, of what our target was. On the flip side, we're actually doing better. I think we're doing better on the GEMT side than what we had forecasted. But another complication, the GEMT side, is that it's July to June. So it's a fiscal year, not a calendar year. The other complication is that there's we call it a true up. It's a reconciliation. We purposefully don't invoice for all of what we think that we can for GMT, because at the end of that fiscal year, they look at the formula, look at the forecasted costs and what we build, and then they reconcile it. We call it the true up, and actually they call it too, it's the true up. And so you know, I think I estimated that if it's the same rate as what Shoreline has been experiencing, it's about 67%. So if we do the true up on what we've collected so far for North Shore, we budgeted 800,000, likely to be closer to 900,000, depending. You cannot, please do not hold me to this. Is all
Right.
You know,
Speculation.
blindfolded, throwing a dart at a board and hoping that you're being accurate. But I appreciate the question and it was time to kind of take a look at, because we do have 10 months now. You know, and I worked with Rachel Berlini, who's our subject matter expert on this. And we're kind of thinking that we're both in agreement that we're looking at about the same, you know, place as far as the data. Certainly, as we have more history and more experience, we will be able to more accurately, you know, predict and so forth. Which will become more important to us again as we go into budget season, making sure that we're accounting for it correctly as much as we can.
I thought that was really good to see that analysis of the car
So we needed,
transport, yeah,
that's
because
why we asked.
I didn't really have any insight into the order of magnitude or where the sources are, you know, et cetera, you know, how reliably it comes in and that stuff.
Are we putting that in our, on our site? We're gonna have that.
A document.
Yeah, well, there will be, it's part of our annual report.
Okay.
And we actually do a statistics report once in the middle of the year, and then there's the annual report. So they're working on the statistics for the semi. Right.
Would you feel bad if we posted that document you sent us?
This information?
It might be hard for public to understand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
I think the really detailed one is hard to digest.
Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay, but
You know, I think we can have a more robust, you know, discussion and identification of the utilization, you know, as part of our.
okay,
That's okay.
thank you.
Yeah, I just thought it was good because that wasn't previously a source of revenue for the fire district.
No,
Mhm.
pretty good.
So, yeah, so the good news, I think clearly we're gonna be over $1 million. in BLS transport revenue in June 2 months.
That's good.
Okay, so on to board resolutions, there are none. Onto consent agenda,
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
everybody in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Onto reports.
You have one thing to add to mine, but do you have any questions about?
I didn't anyway. Okay,
So one of the things, and you may have, I sent an email out, a couple of emails actually out on this, and I'm hoping to connect with the local media outlets and papers and so forth to talk about our WSRB rating improvement from 3 to 2. And that was for Kenmore, Lake Forest Park, Shoreline, you know, all across the board. Hats off to it. I'm going to point to him because it's his division, but I know that Chief Oakstein will immediately say it was some of the people that he supervised. We didn't care for. We disagreed with some of the initial review and felt that it was maybe not as complete as it should have been. So we asked for them to review and reevaluate. That took a bit of work from some of our people, and actually even North City Water District as well. And in that review, we dropped from the 3 to the 2, which has a fairly, it may or may not, depend on the insurance company, may or may not have an impact on single family residences. But certainly for commercial business owners, it will have an impact on a lower insurance rate. So we will put it on our website, and I am going to try and get some media coverage on this, at least, you know, to get out there. So people, if you don't know, you're not going to ask for that
Rating.
reevaluation,
Right.
for your- So I just wanted to say that it's a big positive, and kudos to Chief Oakstein and his division.
Has it ever been a 2 historically, or is it always? Okay.
There's now 17 departments in the state that are in. We're in some rare. There's only one. So Seattle, and they just dropped from a 2 to 1. So where it's it's in that email, and you can look at the chart too. But we're paired up with, you know, it's typically bigger fire departments that get the better rating. It's not always the case, but typically because they have the infrastructure, the staffing, the training, you know, et cetera, to be able to get to a higher rate.
What
So
are
you-
the different metrics they look at?
Others.
Okay, you know, I mean, all.
I can forward you the report if you'd like, but well,
That's what I was thinking.
there's like 4 or 5 different categories, but within the categories, there's a. So like water system, you know, or water supply. There's, you know, so they look at not only the hydrants, water supply, how often we do this, hydrant inspections, the flow rates, et cetera. NORCOM is actually evaluated as far as dispatching, training, operations, staffing, apparatus. There's all these things that factor in, and basically they work off a demerit. They ding you for things for not being 100%. So, and we felt that they didn't identify some of the things that we're doing as well as we are, and that was part of the appeal process that we went through.
Nice.
Okay, are there any commissioner reports? Legal counsel report?
Not today.
Okay. Upcoming board agendas. And Amy, you added that. I already forgot what it was, but
Yeah, so one question is, will there, for the next meeting, be a subcommittee report for Station 54?
Both.
Oh, okay, so there'll be a subcommittee report for Station 54, a subcommittee report on the outbuildings at Station 51, and a discussion of the board budget for training and retreat.
that is great. Can we also, I guess I'm not sure how to do this, but I think before we get to budgeting, we also need to look at, I'm not gonna say this right because my brain's a little scrambled, but rules, like how commissioners are reimbursed, that kind of stuff. This is regarding like when I go on a retreat or anyone else or a conference.
Like a day of services, like defining a day of service.
Or maybe a policy that defines what's covered and what's not, and what you process. you
Yes,
go through.
and do you get prepaid for your per diems? Or do you pay for your meals and get reimbursed the per diems? How does that work out? Because before you go, how many meals?
Yeah, I
Yes,
can answer some of this.
Okay.
Sorry to interrupt.
no,
So yes and yes. So you can get a per diem, or you can, for food, or you can purchase a food and turn in receipts,
Mhm.
per person. So it just depends.
And what I would like to look at is being, I guess in my mind, I would like to line up a little bit more with how Shoreline does some of that. And I think because this board historically hasn't done a lot of trainings, I would like to see us like more mirror what Shoreline is doing as far as you're prepaid your per diems, so you don't have to worry about turning in everything later because you already know what that number is.
And actually, the financial policy that you adopted, I don't know if everything's in there, but some of this is already in there, so we are starting to track in a more parallel fashion.
So maybe an agenda item on the same, similar topic with the budget for that would be to identify what the current policy is, and if we need to make a new policy or
Mhm.
adopt a policy.
Yeah, so who needs to do the research on that? Looks
I'm
like you're
happy
up.
to do that. Yeah, I can contact one of the commissioners at Shoreline and.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and or both.
And somebody
Okay.
needs to review our policies right now and see if it's in there somewhere.
Right, and when I read them, did not see any of that, because I've been trying to go back and find things as I have questions that come up, but. As of this point, the way ours is written is I pay for everything out of pocket. And then get reimbursed at the end. But like if I hold a hotel room and I'm not going for 6 months, they charge me here, and then I don't get reimbursed until after, so. Just trying to figure out that, so it lines up a little bit better. Someone on the board may not have funds to be able to do that, and I want to make sure that we're thinking ahead in case that does happen.
And that's where a department credit card will be key, because then you could charge that hotel room on the department credit card,
Right,
and so you wouldn't be out of pocket. So some of that,
yes,
and I know we're working on that.
yeah,
So I'll keep myself-
Sounds like we just need to define it more.
I think it needs to be defined
And
and,
then also, but we, as a board, have always on expenditures like that, bring it to the board like you did and get approval.
right.
That's very important. We're a stingy board.
Well,
No, I
actually, that's
think-
where it's really critical.
I think it's
actually,
important, yeah.
When it's outside of things that are pre-approved, whether it's conferences or whatever, it is, that just like you did tonight, come to the board, get approval, and then it's authorized.
And then.
Right.
Several, whatever, $1,200 or whatever it is, that'll be kind of what
Yeah,
the budget is. And we come in for $2,000, then the questions.
right.
So.
And they should be, yeah. So I'm trying to streamline it a little bit more, because we had problems like, Don and Amy held a room for me, but then when I got there, they wouldn't let me pay with that card because my name wasn't on it. So it's ironing out these little bumps as we go. So just looking into that a little more, so.
We also have a form that we use for these types of things, that it helps with that pre-authorization, which identifies whether you're getting the per diem, or getting a car, or if you're driving your own personal car. Do you get, mileage reimbursement, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So that might be part of that conversation.
That sounds good.
Starline has existing policies on the whole thing and forms, you could probably just hear.
Mhm.
I
That's
think
what
that form is referenced in the policy that we
I'm
adopted.
taking over.
And then I would love to have Amy do a little bit of training with Beatrice on how she does conferences and the folders that she gives the commissioners at Shoreline. It's just, it seems so streamlined, and I think we're fumbling because we haven't really done a lot of this. So I think being able to pay Amy to sit down with Beatrice and do a little bit, even if it's an hour, on how she does stuff.
Actually, that kind of, that's a great segue too, of like, I would like Beatrice and Amy to get together and work on a commissioner meeting, so that if there's, if Amy goes on vacation, then we have a good backup plan
Mhm.
for like meetings like this, and vice versa, and that can be part of that. But I would also actually suggest that it's with Kimberly Parker
Okay,
as well. She actually does a lot of that conference registration.
Okay.
And figuring all and doing all that stuff kind of behind the scenes. So maybe all three of them. And Kimberly works actually down here,
Mhm.
at times. So
Okay.
it might be-
So Amy,
be able to
have
bring
you
it.
got time to do that?
yeah, that was my next question, is
Well, we're
Amy
talking
up for
about-
that?
And I'm Monday. Week coming up, but the end of August. I'll be back.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
And by the way, if we haven't, thank you, you're doing a great job.
Yes, you are. Definitely,
I'll second that or third that.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so anything else for the future agenda?
One other thing is that just to put it on the radar, I have established a draft of our budget calendar. I wait for my executive team to come back and say that we're good with the dates. As soon as we do that, I'm going to send it to you for review, because some of those dates include, North Shore Board and what will be a special meeting in November to adopt the budget. Because we're going to be working up until that date, and then, what I have in draft form at least is that the regular meeting in November would be the presentation and the discussion, the public, we'll have the public hearings and all that. And then we have the adoption, and I can't wait until December.
Is it do we have to wait a week or so after the presentation and then
I typically go 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay. So
But
do we need to get that on the agenda now?
not yet,
Okay.
but I will be sending this to you probably within the next, probably this week. And then we'll be looking for any feedback. You guys can give it to me individually if there's any conflicts with the dates, but there's like a joint meeting where I present the entire budget to both boards. And then the regular meeting, I think really the key thing is the joint meeting and then the special. It's really like 2 dates that are really going to be, that you'll need to take a look at, the special joint meeting and then the special meeting.
That's in November.
Well, one of the, I think late October for the joint meeting and then November for the special. Sorry, I didn't bring a copy today.
Okay, so we'll get that on.
Yeah, I'll send it
Next
to you.
meeting.
You guys can reply to me individually if you have any concerns or anything like that.
Okay. Okay, then if there's nothing further, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn us. Meeting adjourned.
Chief Holstein.